Good evening and welcome to Dead Sleep True Crime for Bedtime. I'm Nancy Miller, the creator of this podcast, and what you are about to hear is a short teaser for the latest bonus episode. As you may or may not know, Dead Sleep is 100% ad-free and listener-supported. That means it really does rely on you, the listener, to succeed. If you would like to ensure the success of this podcast and enjoy a subscriber-only bonus episode each month, please feel free to subscribe via Spotify, Patreon, and Apple Podcasts. Just a few dollars a month really does make a difference in covering the essential production costs in making this podcast. Thank you for supporting my work, and I hope my work supports you. You can enjoy a free month on Apple Podcasts and a free 7-day trial on Patreon. Thank you. And now, on to the teaser of the latest bonus episode. It's often said, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And if that's true, then by extension, so is ugliness. What one person finds enchanting, another person might find repulsive, hideous, even terrifying. And in tonight's story, we'll hear about a killer who weaponized one woman's unique passion and turned it into the ugliest of crimes. A brazen murder in broad daylight. A family left in the dark for decades. It was a tragedy that at first looked like a joke. But of course, it was dead serious. And this is Dead Sleep, True Crime for Bedtime. And I'm very pleased to bring you the April 2026 bonus episode. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast. It is a sincere pleasure to make this show. And you are 100% the reason why it exists. Now, tonight's episode is a decades-long murder investigation that's been widely covered, but this saga stays with me because of the killer's disguise. A costume that looked completely ridiculous turned out to be utterly ingenious. This is, of course, the Dead Sleep version of events, all factual, but with my own twist on things. And that means no graphic violence or gore, but ample extraneous details to exhaust our overactive minds. And our story begins in the spring of 1990, when a young man named Joe discovered he was, in fact, human. Joe was 21 years old, and like many 21-year-olds, Joe saw himself as invincible, unbreakable, until a broken leg shattered that illusion. On the morning of May 26th, 1990, Joe hopped around the family kitchen, his cast weighing him down like an anchor. It was a thick, hard plaster cast that looked like an open-toed ski boot. The cast started just below the kneecap and extended to the edge of his foot, stopping at the base of his bare toes. Thanks to his recent injury, Joe's life had taken an unexpected turn. Here he was, Memorial Day weekend. Instead of going out to enjoy some beers along West Palm Beach, or maybe head to Miami for a night out, Joe would need to stay home, keep the leg elevated, take it easy, and suck it up. Instead of partying with his friends, he'd be stuck with his parents, which would cramp his style. Back in the late 1980s and early 90s in West Palm Beach, Florida, Joe was undoubtedly what the girls would have called a stud muffin. Joe's hair was a golden blonde mullet, short in the front with wispy fringe in the back. He wore sleeveless muscle tees emblazoned with some cool band name. Joe could be a bad boy sometimes. He even got into a bit of trouble back in high school. But now, he had a girlfriend and lots of buddies. It would have been an epic summer. Now this bum leg. Joe expected to spend the first half of the summer at home with his parents, his 40-year-old mom, Marlene, and his 38-year-old stepdad, Mike. But honestly, it was hard to know if they'd even be around. His mom and stepdad were busy people, partners in love and in business. Over the past several years, Marlene and Mike worked very hard to build an empire comprised of unglamorous but essential services. Marlene oversaw several real estate properties, including apartment rentals. Mike was the boss over at their used car lot, Bargain Motors. Over the past 10 years, they'd managed to accrue a small fortune. They were like the millionaires next door. For many years, Marlene and Mike lived in a modest house, drove their old cars, and went to work every day like everybody else. That is, until they moved into this house. A sprawling ranch home located on a precious acre of land in the sought-after section of West Palm Beach called Wellington. This was 1990. And in a few years, Wellington would become the go-to vacation destination for the rich and famous, with Palm Beach newspapers reporting celebrity sightings including Madonna, Tommy Lee Jones, and a certain superstar rapper, Vanilla Ice. But the Warren family, they were one of the first to invest in this exclusive community. Their house resting along a remote, private road with a few other mansions. The area was golf course green. With so much space in between the properties, there was an airstrip for each of these wealthy residents to fly and land their own private planes, then park them in their own personal airplane hangar. Mansions and private planes. This was a far cry from where Joe and his mom started. Marlene gave birth to Joe when she was just 19. Joe's dad and Marlene divorced while he was still in diapers. By the time he turned 3, Mike was in their lives. Mike treated Joe like his own, and the boy was grateful for it. Mike had even stood by him a few years earlier when Joe got mixed up with the wrong crowd and ended up getting arrested on an aggravated assault charge. It was Mike, along with his mom, who made sure they got a good lawyer, and some mistake from his youth wouldn't haunt him for the rest of his life. Mike and Marlene were themselves pretty young when they first met. And even as a kid, Joe could see his stepdad Mike had a certain charm. Back then, in the 1970s, when Mike and Marlene first met, Mike was handsome in a messy way, with shaggy dark brown hair and an ill-kempt beard. But his eyes, they were such a bright, crystalline blue. One look at him, and those blue eyes cut through that greasy look like Windex. In those early days, Marlene looked like one of Charlie's angels, with her golden blonde hair parted in the middle and feathered, her own blue eyes enhanced with layers of frosted white eyeshadow that went all the way up to her finely arched eyebrows. Mike and Marlene looked good together, and it turned out they worked well together. Both of them go-getters, eager to live the kind of life they'd only dreamed of. For years, they lived in the shabbier part of Palm Beach County, right near the properties they bought and managed. Now, this house was their reward. A place so big, it took some effort for Joe to get from room to room, even without a broken leg. Thankfully, the windows were nearly floor to ceiling in front of the house, so he could always see who was coming and who was going without having to get up. That Saturday morning, as Joe, Marlene, and a few of Joe's friends sat in the kitchen having breakfast, they noticed a white car making its way up their long driveway. Then the car parked several feet from the front door, and something got out. From a distance, the figure was a colorful blur, a kaleidoscope of orange, red, yellow, pink, white. So it took a beat for Joe, his friends, and his mother to realize that colorful figure was a clown. A tall, skinny clown wearing a big, frizzy orange wig, a red, round, ball-shaped nose, face painted pure white, with heavy black eyebrows drawn in to lend a look of surprise. A smile made with red rouge, a crimson-colored grin that stretched nearly ear to ear. And this clown was heading to their house. A clown. Marlene was delighted. She loved clowns, as did her mother Shirley, who encouraged Marlene's interest in clown-inspired art from a young age. When Marlene was a teenager, she got into painting clown portraits. Marlene loved all clowns, but she was particularly inspired by a certain type of American clown called the tramp. The tramp, he was the underdog of the clowniverse. He was the Depression-era hobo-style clown who looked more at home hopping a freight car than he did juggling in some circus. Tramp faces weren't painted clown white. They were flesh-toned, often stubbly, made dirty with smudges of coal. Tramps wore tattered suits, a beaten-up hat, a wilted flower on the lapel, a bindle stick over the shoulder. There's a disheveled pathos to the tramp. It was an interesting attraction. Many teenage girls might have found these forlorn men with the downcast mouths depressing, even creepy. But Marlene was inspired by their wistful melancholy. Her mother would later say her daughter empathized with these tramps. And when she looked into the sweet, sad eyes of a clown, she gained a better understanding of humanity. That people can walk around with a big smile plastered on their face, but it's their eyes that tell the true story. Life was hard, complicated, even for a clown. And these tramps, they gave you a strange sense of hope. Don't give up. Tomorrow will be a better day. As Marlene's mother Shirley put it, no matter how bad your day was going, a clown can make you feel better. And whether Marlene noticed or not, if you placed her clown portraits side by side with pictures of her husband Mike, there was indeed a resemblance. A shabby-looking guy with clear blue eyes, the ever-lovable underdog. The clown in the driveway was not a tramp. This one was more of the Bozo or Ronald McDonald variety. The orange-haired, extroverted alpha clown. one with a lot of confidence, zero pathos. As the clown drew closer, Marlene and Joe saw something in the clown's hand. A small, square wicker basket. Inside the basket was a floral arrangement. Red and white flowers, a mix of carnations, maybe daisies? Tied to the handle of the basket with festive ribbons were 2 mylar balloons. The balloons bobbed just over the clown's head. One of the balloons was Disney-themed, Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. The other balloon was red and heart-shaped, and across the balloon, in silver script, it read, "You're the greatest." Now it was Joe who was excited. It seemed obvious this was probably a get-well gift. Some balloons and cheesy flowers to take his mind off of his broken leg and bulky cast. But who would have been so thoughtful? Maybe it was his girlfriend. Or maybe it was his 3 buddies, who were still in the kitchen, not wanting to spoil the surprise. What wasn't a surprise, given his condition, was his mother beating him to the front door, walking several steps ahead of him as he hobbled his way to the foyer. It was hard to know who was more excited, Marlene or Joe. Just as he rounded the corner, from the living room into the foyer, he heard his mother open the front door and marvel, "Oh, how pretty." Then, bang. Joe was in the hallway now, facing the front door, and saw his mother fall backwards onto the hard marble floor. Her face now a hideous mask, her features blurred with blood. Joe looked at his mother, then up at the doorway. His brain just couldn't make sense of what he saw, of what had happened. Standing in the doorway was a clown. That clown, still holding a gun in between gloved hands. The wicker basket had fallen to the ground. The white flowers splattered with his mother's blood. The heart-shaped balloon, still attached to the basket, waved back and forth, as if taunting him with its words, "You're the greatest." Joe had to wonder, was he next? But he couldn't run. Between his terror and a broken leg, he stood frozen still. He searched the clown's face for a split second, looking for some human feature that was not disguised or distorted with heavy makeup. He only had a moment to find something. And then he noticed the clown's big brown eyes. Only they weren't the sad, soft eyes of a misunderstood clown. These eyes were keen, hyper-focused, and wide with excitement. More like an animal, like a lemur. Satisfied with what it saw. Seconds later, this clown calmly turned away, nimbly walking down the stone steps. As the clown walked away, Joe did notice the one detail that was off: the shoes. These were not big, wide, floppy clown shoes. This person had on regular black men's shoes. Work shoes, like anybody else. And then, without any sense of urgency. The clown got behind the wheel of the white car and pulled away, driving as if nothing happened. Someone in the house dialed 911. As Joe's friends waited for the medics to arrive, Joe had to do something. He had to catch that clown. Fueled by adrenaline, he propelled himself forward, hopping on his good leg as he made his way to his mother's car. He was barefoot, and the only things he had on were his leg cast and a pair of old tennis shorts. Joe tried to punch the gas pedal hard, but with his cast-covered leg, which was slightly bent, he could barely reach the pedals with his foot. It was hopeless, and he likely knew it, but he had to try. If nothing else, he could get some details, maybe a license plate, the direction the clown went. But somehow, the clown got away, and Joe returned home. By the time he got back, the scene was itself a circus. Cop cars, ambulances, TV cameras. His mother on a gurney, surrounded by a half-dozen medics as they put her in the ambulance and rushed her to the hospital. He learned whoever did this, they'd aimed the gun directly at his mother's face, shooting her in the mouth, the bullet lodging into her throat. With his mother en route to the hospital, TV cameras now focused on Joe. He looked exhausted, anguished, as he limped from his mother's car up to the front of the house. By then, it was raining, a tropical storm that blew the palm trees. Rain swirled around him in a mist, cold drops mixing with his hot tears. With his mother rushed into surgery, Joe was, at that time, their only eyewitness. What did the shooter look like, they asked. Joe recounted what he saw. A clown. He was tall, just over 6 feet, and he was skinny. After that, the more details he provided, the more ridiculous it all sounded. He was a clown. The clown wore an orange wig, white makeup, a round red nose, a multicolored patterned costume, and those black shoes. As for the man himself, Joe shared the only physical detail he remembered: brown eyes. But other than that, he couldn't say. Joe didn't know the man's ethnicity. The only skin he saw was his face, which was covered in white makeup. No idea what his real hair color was, just that orange wig. No idea what his nose looked like, just that red rubber ball. Ditto any scars, moles, tattoos. The detectives had to commend this criminal. The clown getup was a brilliant disguise, especially in this upscale neighborhood. If a neighbor saw a tall, skinny guy in a hoodie walking up to someone's front door, they'd take note, maybe call the police. But any of the neighbors who looked out their window that morning and saw a clown carrying flowers and balloons, it wasn't suspicious. It was a sweet gesture. But what police saw was a premeditated, targeted assassination. The clown costume, a ruse, for Marlene Warren to let her guard down so this killer clown could gun her down. But who would do such a terrible thing? And why?